Shalom, 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 it's your brother Kazakya, and I wanted to do a extension of my last post I just made. And once again, as I said, there's an overwhelming amount of Christian churches now that are embracing the Hebraic identity, right? Part one of that, but then the second part of that, they're saying, oh, we're under the new covenant, and so we don't have to obey the old covenant. We don't have to obey the laws and statutes and commandments. So, and this particular pastor used Deuteronomy 28. Okay, so now maybe this will help him as well as other pastors who are trying to tap into the Hebraic understanding of the captivity of the so-called African Americans, blacks, and Negroes who are in fact the children of Israel. But now I want to go to the chapter that follows Deuteronomy 28, because 28 is the identity chapter and the prophetic chapter to identify who the children of Israel are. Now, the Most High has made a promise of he says that he will before I go there, we're talking about I will make a new covenant with the house of Yehuda. Okay, before I go there, I want to show you what the Most High is requiring, brothers and sisters. Before we're not in the New Testament yet. Don't you believe we are not in the New Testament. And I'm going to show you. I did a lesson on that a while ago. But we're going to show you in Deuteronomy 30 what is now required, brothers and sisters. You zoomed in, you tapped in, you've identified that we're Israel, but now you got to understand why, right? Why is there need for the so-called African Americans and blacks and Negroes to identify that they are Israel, and what is required of us before the Messiah returns? Okay, he didn't do away with the old covenant. Okay, we're going to show you why. Okay, so we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. Okay, now Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1, it says, "And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings," right, "and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind," right? Call what to mind? The blessings and the cursings. Okay, this is what most identity people are doing, right? He says, "Call them in mind among all the nations where Yah have driven thee." Okay, so that means, so you're right about that. We are to call the curses in mind about in all the lands where the Most High have driven us. And you detail that, talking about the transatlantic slave trade and the trans-Saharan slave trade. That wasn't included in the lesson, but we went from Babylon to Timbuktu. Okay, that's trans-Saharan to the transatlantic. Okay, all of that is part of the Israelite captivity that came from, right, the land of captivity in Babylon to the land of the New Egypt, America, which you're right about that. Okay, so, but I want you to also understand there's another twist there that needs to be understood. Deuteronomy 28:68 that says, "You shall go back to Egypt in ships," was literal. Okay, Israel, no, you're right. Israel did not need a ship to go back to Egypt. Okay, but Israel historically did go back to Egypt in ships, and the verse says, "And from there," from where? From Egypt, "you will be sold to your enemies." See that? So that's what the prophecy said. Okay, Israel went into Egypt in ships, and from there Israel was sold into slavery. Yes, and we did come into the New Egypt in ships, but we did literally go back to the old Egypt in ships, right? During the time of, and I don't want to go make it too detailed, but during the time of the sea trade people who traded, the Phoenician people who did the seafaring trade up the north coast, across the Mediterranean and the north part of Africa up into Morocco and into parts of Europe. Yes, that was ships that came from the coast that included Egypt as well. Okay, but that's not what the lesson is about. But I want to go back to Deuteronomy 30. I had to throw that in there. Okay. Now, the next part is that he says, and call them to mind among the nations where Yah hath driven thee. And he says, verse 2, and shall return unto Yah, right? And shall obey his voice, right? According to all that I command thee this day. See that? Thou and thy children with all thy heart and with all thy soul. See that? So he's saying return to the covenant. He didn't say, oh, look for the new covenant now. We're in a new covenant now. He says return to the covenant. Let's read it again. That they shall return unto Yah and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day. Not no future covenant. This covenant that he made with the house of Israel, he said, they shall return unto the Most High, right? Return unto the Most High with our what? With our lifestyle. With all that he commanded, the dietary law, observing the Sabbath day, observing the days that he gave us in Leviticus 23, right? All these things, he said, he says, return and shall obey his voice according to all that I commanded this day, right? Then he said, and your children with all your heart, that then Yah will turn your captivity. Yah is going to turn the captivity when we return to the commandments, brothers and sisters, not the new covenant. You're wrong about that. Okay? And the new covenant hasn't come. We're going to show you, right? Okay, now let me just finish this out. So he says that then Yah will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee and will return and gather thee from all the nations where Yah, thy Elohim, have scattered thee. Before we go into the new covenant, brothers and sisters, we're going to return to the covenant. Then he's going to gather us from the lands where we were scattered. Then is when we get the new covenant. Not now. We're not in a new covenant. Y'all got to stop teaching that as a false teaching. We're not in a new covenant. We're not in the new covenant. The repentance and the returning to the covenant, to the commandments, as he says here, then he will have compassion, and then he will gather us from where? From all the lands where he has scattered us. Okay? Verse 4, chapter Deuteronomy 30 and 4. If any of thine be driven, right, into the outermost parts of heaven, from thence will Yah thy Elohim gather thee, and from thence where he fetched thee. 5. And Yah will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and it will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. Right? 6. Yah will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed to love Yah with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou may live, right? And Yah will put all these curses upon thy enemies, right? And on them that hate thee, which persecute thee. Verse 8, thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yah and do all, not the new covenant, do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. You hear that? That's what the Most High said. He didn't say nothing about, no, we don't have to keep the old law. We don't have to keep covenant no more. We're under the new covenant now. That's not what he said. That's not the prophecy. That's not the book. That is your interpretation of your Christian theology, and it's false. He said, thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yah and do all his commands, verse 8, which I command this day. Verse 9, and Yah will make thee plenteous in every work in thy hand, and in the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, for good. For Yah will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. Right? Here's the kicker. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yah, thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in the book of the law. And thou shalt turn unto Yah thy Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul. So that's what he said. He didn't say without it. He didn't say, oh, you identify you Israel, and now you know why you went into captivity. You don't have to keep coming. All you got to do is just believe in Jesus, Yahshua HaMashiach. That's not what he said. He said, return to the covenant, right? Obey the commandments and the statutes. Let's read it again, verse 10. He says, to keep the commandments and his statutes, which are written in the book of the law, period. We don't have to keep the law. That's Christian theology that's attempting to embrace that falsehood that we've adopted from Christianity, embrace it, and now mix worship and Christian Hebrew theology so that it's acceptable by most Christendom. Okay, it's false, it's a deception, and the enemy has tricked you. You have fallen for a Mickey. Somebody slipped a Mickey in your drink. All right, now let's go back. Let's go to the new covenant. Okay, what he said, because the new covenant follows. The new covenant follows the return to the covenant, right? The obedience to the commandments and statutes, the gathering of Israel back to the land of our forefathers, and then that's when the new covenant or the renewal of the covenant is instituted. Okay? Now, Jeremiah 31. Okay? 31. Behold, the days come, says Yah, that I will make a new covenant, which in the Hebrew tongue it is a renewal covenant. It's not something brand new, fresh, and new. It's a renewal, reinstatement. It's like you renew your vows with your spouse. I mean, people say all the time, Most High is married to the backslider. Right. So when he reestablishes the covenant with us, that's what the new covenant is. It is a reestablishment. It is a reenactment. It is a renewal, a refreshing of what the Most High gave us from the beginning. Okay? Not something brand and total new, but you can look that word new up and it will bring a whole nother level of revelation to your teaching. Okay? Let's continue. So he says, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, or Yehuda, okay? Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mizraim, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, says Yah. But this shall be the covenant. Here's the thing. This is how we know we're not in the new covenant, brothers and sisters, because this is what he said. This is how you will know you were in the new covenant. And this happens after we have obeyed the covenant, have returned to the Most High, our children, our whole family. And then now he gathers us and brings us back to the land where we were scattered from. After that takes place, then he says, verse 31, not according to the covenant I made with your fathers in the day that I took you by the hand to bring them out to the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband to them. Verse 33. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. Here it is. After those days, says Yah, I will put my law. See, the law's not done away with. I'm going to take the law I gave you, right? I'm going to put it in your heart. I'm not going to say, oh, you don't have to keep the law. All you got to do is just believe in Jesus. No, he said, I'm going to write my law, my Torah, my instructions, my way of life. I'm going to write it, right, in their inward parts and write it in their hearts and will be their Yah, their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Watch this. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor. See that? They shall teach no more every man his neighbor, right? And every man his brother, saying, know Yah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, says Yah, for I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. So that doesn't happen, brothers and sisters, until we are regathered back to the land of Israel. Why? For what purpose? Because he said that we're going to be the priests to the nations. So we are going to be a part of the government of Yah on earth, where the law is going to go forth from Jerusalem. Okay? You can go to Hosea, I believe it is, or Isaiah, where he says the law shall go forth from Jerusalem. How's it going to go forward? Because the people that are carrying out the law, brothers and sisters, are the self-same people who the Most High gathered from the lands where he scattered them, put his laws in their hearts so that they walk in total obedience and agreement in all knowledge, spiritual knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the Most High's way of living and his instructions, that they can enforce it to the nations so that the nations can live according to the way the Most High has said or has instructed his creation to live. The priest above all people. That's what we're talking about. Identifying you, Israel, is one phase of the whole prophecy, of the whole flow of the futuristic prophecy for the nation of Israel. Knowing you're Israel is one thing, but knowing how to be Israel is another thing. And that's the thing that we need to get. We need to learn how to be Israel. And on that note, I'm going to say shalom. Shalom, shalom.